Seth Emerson, who covers the University of Georgia for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution and their website, Dog Nation, has been all over this story. Seth, welcome to the program.
How are you doing?
Just another day in the SEC, right?
Yeah. Preseason starting. Let's go over depth chart. Oh, wait. Still have this going on.
Seth, you wrote a great story yesterday detailing Maurice Smith's mother, who's now gone public, and when family members start going public, it's going to get, the gloves are going to come off. What was the sentiment from her yesterday about, I guess they feel that Maurice is being unfairly treated by Alabama?
Yeah, they feel like, and the story should be going up. For some reason, we have technical problems right as the story was going up, so I don't know if Nick Saban or quality control staffers are behind it, but we have a story going up. I obtained a letter that Maurice Smith wrote an appeal board at Alabama on July 1st, appealing to have his scholarship non-renewed or just get a full release so he could transfer to Georgia. So that was July 1st. August 2nd was yesterday when Samira Smith, his mother, went public. So this has been going on for a while. And in their mind, they were slow played by Nick Saban and the staff. Obviously, Alabama started practice Thursday. Georgia already started practice on Monday. And that's basically how they felt. And they I don't know that they necessarily feel lied to, because I think they've been pretty it sounds like Saban and the staff have been upfront with them that they've said, we're not going to release you to another SEC school, and they've tried to fight them on it, and they're being blocked on it.
Talking to Seth Emerson, covers the University of Georgia for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. In your story, it said he also sought a release to the University of Miami, where former Georgia coach Mark Richt is, and then he had a change of heart and decided to fight for his right to go to Georgia. In your mind, is this just because of Kirby Smart and Mel Tucker, or is there more to why Nick Saban would not want Maurice Smith to go to Georgia?
I can't speak to whether there could be anything personal or anything there. I don't think anyone thinks there's bad blood between Nick Saban and Kirby Smart, but could there be something competitive to it where, they let Chris Black transfer to Missouri, but maybe they think, I don't think the chances are great we're going to see Missouri in the SEC championship game if we get that far. But maybe they worry, maybe it's a compliment to Kirby Smart and Mel Tucker in Georgia that they're a little worried. They might see Alabama, or they might see Georgia in Atlanta in December, and that Maurice Smith will not only take his talents to Athens and be playing against them, but take his brains. From everything I've heard, and if the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, I mean, his mother comes off very well when I spoke to her, and he seems to be a smart kid. From everything I've heard, I think he graduated from Alabama in 3 years.
He did.
So he's taking with him knowledge of Alabama's system. Now, the counter to that is, hello, Kirby Smart and Mel Tucker and Glenn Schumann and anybody else they brought with them from Alabama to Georgia has also brought that knowledge. I guess, if you're at Alabama, you're worried that you may have changed some stuff in the spring or over the summer, and he has knowledge of that. But that's I think what goes into it. But I think it's also, from what I understand, just a pure desire to keep him around. That they think the kid's a player. He was first team nickelback coming out of the spring, I guess. So there's also just, and they probably see, I would guess Alabama does, a chance that the kid could have a change of heart and want to come back. They have reason to believe that the bridge has not been burned. Now, as far as his mother, she would say differently.
Speaking with Seth Emerson, he covers the University of Georgia football team and the athletic program for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Did his mother at all say why he wants to transfer, given the fact that Alabama values him and it at least from the outside appears like he has a very prominent role in this year's defense?
Yeah, I think. Now he originally wanted to go to Baylor, and he thought a little bit about Miami. So I think I go into this letter that I was looking at that he just was ready to go. But that is kind of the sentiment, I think, that it's hard to pin down. I haven't gotten there yet. That's the short answer is why exactly he wanted to go. People at Alabama may have done more reporting on that, because as a Georgia writer, I wasn't covering Alabama until this story showed up. So I just knew that he had decided to transfer. It's like, okay, all right, well, I guess Alabama's losing a cornerback. That's fine. And then you find out, he wants to come to Georgia. And it's like, so I haven't really gotten into the why he really wants to leave Alabama part. But some of the stuff that he's alleging happened after he decided to leave Alabama would seem to burn that bridge.
Yeah, speaking with Seth Emerson, and covers the University of Georgia for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution and its website, Dog Nation. Your article, which is fairly, I wouldn't call it inflammatory, but clearly Maurice Smith has had his feelings hurt when his locker was cleared out. He's denied access basically to anything team-related, including the workout space. Ostracized from the team is the way he characterized it, his personal belongings thrown in the trash. In your read of this situation, I'm not going to ask you to speak for Maurice, but having talked to his mother and getting a read of that, is there any chance of reconciliation between Alabama and Maurice Smith, or should Alabama just go ahead and let this kid go?
Well, if you look at the letter, which was ostensibly written and signed by Maurice Smith, and you look at the comments by his mother, and having talked to her, you would say no chance of reconciliation. But you've always got to preface that by saying that I have not talked to Maurice. So, I'm sure he loves his mother, he loves his parents, and his name was on that letter. But is there that chance that he has a change of heart, and when you all go out there tomorrow to the practice field, that he's out there? You don't know until you go out there, I guess.
Talking to Seth Emerson of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, he covers the University of Georgia for their website, Dog Nation. In your article, which is great, by the way, and hopefully when it goes up online, I'll retweet it for all our listeners to read. It goes into great detail about the souring of this relationship. In your article, it says Nick Saban met with Maurice Smith several times, and in one instance said the SEC commissioner agreed with him that it should be a policy that you should be allowed to transfer in conference. Do you think the conference commissioner should be having a role in that?
At this point, I think you can make a good argument for that. Jeff Schultz, one of the columnists at the AJC, posted something based off of last night's story, saying that, someone should step in, and not just SEC, but nationally, that it's getting a little ridiculous. And in Georgia's case, they're not exactly on a huge high moral ground because of A.J. Terman, kid that wanted to transfer and did transfer, and he got a release to transfer in the spring, but it came out there that Kirby put a restriction on going to Miami, and then he came out and said, I put that in there even though A.J. Terman didn't want to go to Miami, which he didn't, by the way, because I wanted to set a precedent that no one could follow Mark Richt and company to Miami. And so someone could sit back and say, well, frankly, what's wrong with someone wanting to follow their coach to another place? And that's what Maurice Smith is trying to do here. Several coaches is trying to follow. And what other walk of life wouldn't you be able to do that? Now, there will be a few, there are non-compete clauses in some businesses, but in a lot of businesses, you are allowed to do that. If you're willing to pick up and move and go, you should be allowed to do that. The counter to that is do you want this to be every year free agents in college football or college basketball or wherever? So there's a competitive aspect to it that would have to be hashed out. But, the more this comes up, the more this happens, there are going to be people that are going to be saying, wait, why is somebody not allowed to just go somewhere and be on scholarship if he's good enough and play if he's good enough and follow his heart's desires? But will Greg Sankey and company get involved? At this point, I kind of doubt it. They tend to have a hands-off policy when it comes to a lot of these issues that are between their schools rather than issues that are conference to conference.
Wrapping up here with Seth Emerson wrote a great summary of what's going on between Alabama defensive back Maurice Smith and his desire to transfer to Georgia. He covers the University of Georgia for the AJC's Dog Nation. Seth, in terms of just a practicality standpoint, Georgia began practice on Monday. Where would Maurice, could he find a role, and how prominent would it be at Georgia if at the end of the day Alabama wants to avoid the bad press and just says lets him go? Could he find a role in Georgia's defense?
You know, I might be tempted to say it depends on when he gets here. If he ever gets here, I mean, if he got here tomorrow, that would, you know, maybe he starts. But if he gets here in 2 weeks, it delays the process. But he would be walking into a situation where he knows the defensive coordinator in Mel Tucker, who was also, you know, his position coach and he was secondary coach here. He knows the head coach. He knows the system. It shouldn't be that much of an adjustment. It would just be a competitive thing. Not to go over Georgia's depth chart, but they have fairly established starters at all 5 spots in the secondary, and I'm counting the nickel back because obviously 4-3-5 is the predominant stuff. But none of those guys, when you've got a new staff in Kirby Smart and Mel Tucker, let's just say they're coming in with fresh eyes and maybe they're ready to say, well, you know, we'll start these 5 guys, but most of it may be better than that guy and that guy and that guy. So from what I've been told, Mo Smith, if he got here in August sometime, you know, in a reasonable amount of time, would have a pretty good chance to start.